happens to your 401k when you leave your job? For many Americans, their 401k account is their greatest investment account and the number one thing they're going to rely on in retirement. But what do you do with it when you leave your job or you change jobs? In today's video, I'm going to break down the options that you have and the things you need to know so you make the best decision in your situation. I'm Matt Sorensen. Let's build wealth. All right, if you got a 401k at a current employer you're about to leave or you've already left, the first thing I want you to do is determine your vested and unvested account balance in your 401k. So when you have money in a 401k and you get a statement from your 401k provider, let's say it's at Vanguard or Fidelity, whoever that company is, that's going to indicate the amount of money that you have, but it will specify vested versus unvested. What does that mean? Well, vested means it's your money. Unvested means it's not your money yet. See, when you put money in a 401k, the money that comes off your paycheck, the employee contribution, you're 100% vested in that. That's your money. It's investing, it's growing, and you can get it when you leave. The employer match, though, or any profit sharing that the company puts in, many companies say you don't get that unless you've been here for 3 years. So that money we put in your 401k in 2023, and now it's 2025 and you're leaving, you don't get that because you're not vested yet. So you have to make sure you're paying attention to the vested versus unvested amounts on your statement. Many times leaving a job, you could be giving up money of unvested money that you have not earned yet through the match. It still shows on your statement, it's still being invested, but you don't get to take it with you. Now, whether your money is vested or not should be in the summary plan description of your 401k that you could get from your employer that says, hey, when we put money in on your behalf from the employer as a match or profit sharing to benefit you, when does that become your money? Some companies immediately match it and it's immediately available if you left that employer tomorrow. Some companies stretch it out over a few years and say you vest over time. So it's going to depend on your situation. Not everybody's in the same boat, but you might want to know this before you leave the job, of course, too, because it should go into your decision about taking a new job, whatever you may be doing. But the vesting part is what you're going to need to make sure you understand to know what you're going to be able to move as we get to the options here. All right, let's go over the options of what you can do. Obviously, the first thing you can do is just leave it in your old employer 401k. Don't do that. Your 401k plan has really high fees and crappy investment options. Most 401k plans only let you invest in mutual funds or target date funds. And those traditionally are poor investments with high fees. Maybe you're doing well. I don't know if you're doing well and happy about it. This is not meant to be investment advice. Knock yourself out. But you're going to have more options once we get over to the IRA world, which we're going to be talking about here in a second. So your current employer plan is going to be limited investment options with the mutual funds and ETFs. The other downside to staying in your current employer 401k where you don't work anymore, obviously they're not putting any more money in and you can't contribute to it either. You don't work there anymore. So you can't put more money into it moving forward. So how am I going to save for retirement moving forward? You're going to need another strategy for that. Maybe you've got a new job. Maybe you're going to look at the IRA option. We're going to talk about those here in a second. The other reason I don't like you being in your old employer 401k, average 401k for a small business that employs most Americans in the US is 1.5%. You don't see that fee on a statement. You don't get a bill for it, but your $100,000 401k actually pays $1,500 in fees by the time you add everything up. So they're very high fees. You just don't see it because it's happening in a lot of little instances. Versus IRAs on the other side, which we're going to talk about here, that are going to be lower fees. Second option, moving to the new 401k at your new employer. You could move to the new 401k at your new employer. I don't love that option either. They're not going to give you any benefit because you rolled over your old company 401k plan to the new employer 401k. Now, I like doing the new 401k where you're at, particularly if the company's doing a match and throwing some money in, incentivizing you to save in their 401k. I like it for that. But that doesn't mean you need to roll over your old employer 401k. But you could move it to your new employer 401k if you want. Most 401k plans will allow for that. I don't think you should though. There's no benefit to it. And again, you're going to go back to limited investment options and higher fees. The next option you have is just cashing it out. Well, why wouldn't I just cash out my 401k when I leave? Well, if you're 59 and a half or older, I don't mind that. You're in retirement now. Let's go live on it. But if you're still working and not yet in retirement plan age, you're going to pay a 10% early withdrawal penalty. And if these are traditional dollars, you're going to take it into taxes. It's going to go into income. So if you have a $100,000 401k, you're like, I'm just going to cash it out. I'm just going to take the money from me right now. And you're 35 years old. Okay, well, that $100,000 401k is going to have a $10,000 penalty payment to the IRS. So now you're down to 90. And you're going to take it into your taxable income. Let's say you're in a 25% federal and 5% state tax bracket for a total tax of 30%. Now you're paying 30% tax on the $100,000, which is going to be 30 grand. So at the end of the day, that $100,000 401k is actually 60,000 after you pay the penalty and the tax. So you might want to let it stay invested. Let's let this grow and come out later on at retirement. It's generally not a good idea to cash out the old employer 401k. 401k because you have another option available. You can simply roll it to an IRA. This is the most common option. It's what most advisors would recommend you do, what most savvy investors do. When they leave an old employer 401k, they roll it to an IRA. An IRA is an individual retirement account. You don't need an employer to set up a 401k for you. That's 401k world. In the IRA space, there's $15 trillion in IRAs. There's actually more money in IRAs than there is 401ks. Well, most of that money was funded from people who left a job with the 401k that rolled it over into an IRA. So the IRA account is the most popular place to go. Here's a few reasons why. First, more investment options. You can invest in a stock that you want. You can still do an ETF or mutual fund that you could have done in the 401k. You can also do a self-directed IRA that we do at my company, directed IRA, where your IRA could invest in real estate, a private company, a startup, crypto. You just have more investment options in the IRA world. Now, you might just want to do something simple and just go to Fidelity or TD Ameritrade and buy an ETF or your favorite stock or company, or do a combination of things. You have a lot of options here. But the benefit here with the IRA is more investment options. Depending on what you want to do, you're going to have far more options than you will in the 401k space. All right, the second reason people love IRAs over 401ks is the fees are lower. Most broker-dealer 401ks where you're buying ETF stocks or mutual funds, they don't have fees or they have minimal fees. There's no employer plan fees like you're over here in the 401k space, and you're in control of this. You don't need to go talk to your old employer's HR department to do something on your 401k or to change something or to get money out of it. You're in control of the IRA. You're directly there negotiating the fees, which typically are minimal if you're doing stocks or mutual funds. Now, if you're doing private assets like real estate or a private fund or crypto or a startup, those are more fee intensive because there's more documents involved. You're not just typing in a ticker, but you have way more investment options and the fees are more reasonable, lower. You're going to actually save money typically in an IRA versus a 401k. Now, I mentioned this a little bit just a second ago that you are in control of the IRA. When you're in 401k world with your old employer 401k, you're limited to what they have. Their investment options, their fee schedule, the ability to access the funds. You're still going through that employer and their providers that you don't even work for anymore. So I have greater control in the IRA space to get the money. I can convert it to Roth if I have traditional dollars. You can go over to a Roth IRA. You just have far more control and options available to you when you're in the IRA space. And when that money goes from the 401k to the IRA, there's no tax. There's no penalty. If you had traditional 401k dollars, you can just go to a traditional IRA. If you had Roth 401k dollars, you can just go over to a Roth IRA. This is all qualified retirement accounts. It's not going on your tax return. This is staying in a tax-deferred traditional dollars or tax-free account type if you're using a Roth. All right, so how do you open up an IRA? Well, it's actually pretty easy. It's 3 steps. The first thing you need to do is open up the IRA account at the provider you want to use. At our company, Directed IRA, you can do it online on our website, Directed IRA. If you're doing a brokerage IRA or anywhere else, of course, you can typically do this all online, set it up electronically. But now you have the IRA account open, and that's the first step you need to do. You want to determine what that account type is, though. So if I've got the old traditional 401k, I would open up traditional IRA as my IRA account. If I had a Roth 401k, I would open a Roth IRA. You're going to roll over the funds from the 401k to the corresponding IRA account. We'll want to match Roth with Roth and traditional with traditional. All right, now that gets me to the second point here. After I have the right account opened up, I got to move the money. Now, the form you're going to use is what's called a direct rollover form. This is not a transfer. This is called a direct rollover. And what you do in this instance is you'll complete a form with your old 401k provider. Let's say that old 401k is at Vanguard. Vanguard's going to have a form that says, hey, if you want to move this money to an IRA, here's the form you need to fill out. And on that form, you're going to specify what's your 401k, what's your account that's there, and they're going to tell them, send it over to this IRA. Not taxable, not a distribution. What's going to happen is they will liquidate the account and send over cash, which will get deposited into your new corresponding IRA account. Now, some 401k providers do it the old-fashioned way. They literally send a check. And it's annoying, and there's a check going in the mail, and then it gets deposited by your IRA provider, and they've got a hold on it to make sure the check clears, and then your funds are available to invest. Another option is just transferring over the assets. So let's say you had an ETF in your 401k or a mutual fund. You can actually just transfer that asset directly over to your IRA. If you want to stay in that same investment, that might be something you want to do. So you could look into that option as doing a rollover of the actual asset. All right, so now we got the account open and we got a direct rollover of the funds into the account. Now, what I don't want you to do is something called a 60-day rollover. Sometimes people will take this option where you take the money from your 401k and you cash it out. And as long as you redeposit that money into an IRA within 60 days, you are not taxed on the distribution. It's called a 60-day rollover. Don't do this. I've seen too many people screw this up. And on day 61, they're calling us and saying, is there anything I can do? I screwed it up. I forgot about it. I went on vacation. Someone died in my family. No, there's some hardship options here if the financial institution screwed up, but otherwise there is no extension on this. It's 60 days. So don't go down this route. Just have the direct rollover. Have the money go directly to the new IRA provider. It stops you from having to do anything anyways. It's the easier way. There's less steps in the process. Let it go direct. No reason the money needs to go to you for you to cash and then for you to cut a check to the new IRA provider. So avoid the 60-day rollover at all costs. Just do the direct rollover of your 401k to the new IRA. So now we're at the final step here, step 3, which is invest the account. We actually need to make sure the money gets invested. Don't just let it sit there in cash if you had a rollover of cash. So go find the investment you want to do. If you don't know, you can just pick a simple ETF or a stock. The S&P 500 fund, something like that is your default. But don't get fixated on trying to be a wizard of Wall Street or finding the best startup or crypto to buy or some other self-directed asset. Let's get invested in something. And in the meantime, we can go and hunt for that asset that might be a better investment or opportunity. But don't do nothing. Don't just let the cash sit there uninvested. Now, once you've invested the account, now you're off to the races. And the nice thing about the IRA is you can make annual contributions into the account, $7,000 a year. If you're 50 or older, you can do $8,000 a year. Maybe you have a new employer 401k and you're contributing there too. You may still be able to contribute to the IRA depending on your income. If it's a Roth account you're doing, you could possibly do the backdoor Roth IRA. Even if you're high income, I got a video here on that to make sure you check out, because that's a great way to do a 401k and get money into an IRA as well. Well, I hope today's video was helpful so you know what to do with that old employer 401k, what the options are so you make the best decision in your situation. Please subscribe to my channel. I've got a lot of content talking about retirement accounts, building wealth, saving taxes, and protecting assets. I'm Matt Sorensen. We'll see you next time.